Ladies and gentlemen, it is nigh upon us. Do or die football here in the Pac Champs with the Kiwis up against Tonga this coming Sunday evening here at Eden Park in Auckland, New Zealand. It's a massive, massive game, and there's a lot to break down for you guys. I want to get through all the nitty gritty to getting right to what I think ultimately will be the score prediction. But there's a lot of things to think about really going into this final. So before we start, please hit that like and subscribe for all your Pac Champs coverage over the next week and a half before we hit that final. But let's break down just some of the details going into this game. Look, the bookies are on the TAB have listed at 136 to the Kiwis. That says that Kiwis are definitely strong favourites. But then again, there is an outside chance for Tonga. Based on what they've produced, the argument is that, look, Kiwis had a strong performance against Tor. Tonga very poor against Tor. So, what does that say about Tonga? Can they break that margin? Can they get over that line? It's a good odds for anyone that is going that way, but still it's saying majority to be 136. That they believe that the Kiwis are legit. Are they legit? Well, from what we've seen so far, that is possibly true. Just some of the recap from that game against Samoa and Tonga quickly. Look, absolute domination in every department. I thought Tor absolutely killed it. And will they win the Pac Champs finals? They are on their way to it. They got a week off. They can be fresh. They can throw everything at it. They got the forward pack. They got the halves combo that really starting to click. The outside backs are moving and doing their thing. The offensive players working. You see how much more work that they had to do, Tonga, for tackles and efficiency, and they had 18 errors. They need to limit that, almost cut that down to less than 10, especially against the Kiwis. But they are chasing points. This is currently the scoreboard. They are at a negative 28, and the Kiwis are at a positive 6. Obviously, Toa Samoa have cemented themselves with that win against Tonga with that 22 plus margin. That made them purely safe. That no one can knock them out from that. So, 28 minus 6. I checked this on ChatGPT. It comes out 18 points is the margin. So I suppose if you win by 18, that takes your number to below 12 or whatever it is, and then the Kiwis get a negative 14 or whatever it is. Anyway, guys, that is the number. 18 is the magic number. So if I'm a Tonga fan, I have to approach or think about this team has to either defend like their lives depend on it, or they have to go on a scoring spree that they haven't seen yet in the Pac Champs this year. I mean, if they had scored 30 points last week and lost by 52 or whatever it was, and you still got a negative 28, you know they got points in them. But they leaked 34 and they only scored 6. So the odds are probably saying that they're in favor of the Kiwis to win this game. But we'll break down some of the key factors that I think the Kiwis really need to perform at. Firstly, consistency. Now, under Stacey, they've had some good matches and then they've had some poor ones. They had 2 really bad ones while they against the Kangaroos in Christchurch last year, which pretty much just controlled the game and closed the game out. There were some moments there, but definitely missed it. Then the following week against a Tonga team that blew them out of the park in that first half. And that was quite scary as a Kiwis fan to think, wow, we did chase the game home. We had the opportunity to win it, but it wasn't enough ultimately. We actually choked it in the end. A few missed opportunities. So you're saying that we need to get some consistency. You can't just have one good game against Tor and expect to just drop off the next. That's not going to be sufficient. This is a team that beat Australia 30-0. There is a minimum standard required. This isn't the greatest Tongan team. You need to be consistent. You got to use those impact players effectively. I thought that Nas was okay, but didn't do enough. I want a bit more from Xavier Willison, and I want that bench to be humming a bit more. How can you get Tamari Martin to kind of fill in for a Phoenix Crossland, who isn't the greatest hooker? But how can you get impact off that bench? I think Nafahu White and Aaron Clark will do what they do. I'm looking forward to seeing what Xavier Willison is, but you need that to play out through the long stretches of the game. Expand the attacking structure. Really start to open it up even more. It looked great in that first half. It died off a bit, But can we see even more in terms of what structures are available to us? Can Dylan Brown open up more things? Is there more kind of nifty, shifty kind of play that we can see? Little kicks, scrubbers in behind, or do they stick to what's working and maybe you don't go too expansive? But I would like to see a bit more open play. Everyone needs to do their job. Everyone has to be able to perform at their click or close to. Even if Tonga do dominate, you need to still be producing your yardage numbers. You still need to be doing your tackles and tackle efficiency. The kicking meters have to still be pinpoint from a Kieran Foran to really pin this Tonga team down. You can't slip off. You can't have too many errors. If everyone's doing their job, they should go well. At the same time, though, you have to weather that storm from Tonga. That fan base, man, once they get going, and I saw it personally when I was at Mount Smart last year, those 2 to 3 tries that they scored early in that game, that fan base just lifted, and you could just, the hymns were going, the yelling, the screaming, the chants, the happy vibes. It was like a fortress there in Mount Smart for Tonga. So if the Kiwis start off slow with a lot of errors and Tonga get 2 tries up early, watch out for that crowd. So you have to weather that storm. You have to keep the points coming to keep them quiet because they can get rowdy and they can get loud. And it's awesome. I mean, I went there last year and had some Tongas behind me, and it was all fun and laughs, and we all kind of mocking each other and banter. But they're loud, man, and they love their team. And those hymns, once they get going, man, it's like, whoa, I'm like in the middle of church in Tonga and Nuku'alofa, like you really do feel you're in a foreign land. So it doesn't matter where they play, that fan base, they'll turn it around. But the Kiwis need to weather that storm. For Tonga, I go back to one of my first points last week. You need to hit the ground running. And specifically for this, because you're chasing 18 points, just hit the ground running. Can you get an early couple tries early? Kiwis might pull an error and you got an attacking set on there. Can you score in that first set? Or can you score, get a 6 again, and then you got 2 sets to work with, and can you score some points? Getting early points is something that can do wonders for your team. I remember that as a Kiwis fan, trying to play the Kangaroos, it sometimes was so difficult to score points, but when you felt you could score points, it builds your confidence. Same here. If Tonga feel that there's some chinks in that armour, specifically going down Casey McLean and Seb Cress's side, there are some points there, I believe, then that can build some confidence. But Isaiah Katoa, he is the key man. At this level, and I'll use another Kiwis analogy. There were times when Benji had to do it on his own. There were times when Sean had to produce on his own. Sometimes, especially in these formats and Pacific Island countries and Kiwis itself, haven't had the massivest depth of halves. Sometimes you're a lone wolf. You have to produce. So I expect Katoa to do similar. Yongi isn't providing him. I'm not expecting massive changes from Yongi. So I think Izzy Katoa, you have to put your hand up again. I go back to 2010 Four Nations from Benji. He just pulled it. He just created. You just have to go into that zone, and I think that's maybe what Katoa needs at this time. Defensive resilience. You can't leak 34 points. Even if you score 40, you still lost. You've won the game, but you're out of the final. You got to be so tight. You got to clean everything up through the middle. You got edge defense. Maybe you take a few more gambles. Maybe you jam. Maybe you go for intercepts. Maybe you try a few things to put some pressure on the Kiwis, but you have to be defensively resilient to even have a chance. For example, if you can go 18-0 into half time, I'm just providing scenarios, but then again, that could be the buffer that you need, and then they score 1 try and you score 1 try and you've won by 18. That's what I'm talking about. You have to be sound defensively first. Then you can ride that wave of your fan base because once that fan base hit, once that DJ gets rocking as well with all the songs, hits the Mate Tonga, mate, that crowd just starts to pump up. So ride that wave when you guys get it. Ride it, but you have to earn it. You have to siege mentality with a little bit of freedom. What I mean by that, say no one believes in you. Take that kind of force about where no one's gonna believe you. No one thinks you can do it. The Samoans are mocking you with the Versace all week. Really take that in and use that as momentum. But also, use a bit of freedom. What I mean by that is hey, there's nothing expected of us to win. Maybe we throw caution to the wind a little bit more. Throw the ball around, see what happens, that type of thing. So it's a fine balance of it. I'm kind of thinking like if you want to win this game and win it by 18, you kind of just have to get into a flow. I've seen it with the Kiwis at times when we've beaten the Kangaroos. We just gotten into a flow. That 30-0 game, we were just unstoppable. You just caught them off guard, and everything you did worked. You kind of need that to happen for Tonga. Everything needs to flow, and the vibe you just get on a roll, and everything needs to fall. Every pass has to fall in its place. All of that stuff to happen in order for you to win by that margin. But it's not out of the realms of possibility. Let's go now to the key stats. Look, this is key here. For both games against Tor, so it's giving it kind of an outline of what can work. You can see the Kiwis' completion rate got a bit more ball. You need Tonga. Well, I think they need to get up to about that 36, 38 out of 40, say, sets to barely compete and beat the Kiwis. So you're looking around that number. You want to get that completion percentage up to minimum 85. And then time of position, you want to have it about equal 30 minutes or 30, or Tonga will want to be in the more dominant position where you're having the ball for longer periods of time. The run meters need to pick up massively. Kiwis dominated Tor Samoa, and you got to pick those numbers up. Same with the kick return meters. That's what I'm saying. The back five, that Tongan back five, I thought Sione Katoa was really poor. Daniel Tupou wasn't targeted, so the kicking return meters are really important to being effective. That might be a something they can get out of it with a Daniel Tupou because Kieran Foran is a right-footed kicker, whereas you had Luai targeting Sione Katoa and he was just struggling. So maybe those kick return meters come up a little bit. The effective tackle percentage, you have to get your percentage up over 88% to 90%. You just got to clean it up, like I said, with the defensive resiliency. Drop those areas below 10, sitting in the 8 range. That would be perfect. And you got to drop those mixed tackles over down to the 30 range. That's the only way you're going to really, really kind of be solid. And then offloads, you got to pick them up. You're probably going to have to throw caution to the wind. AFB is not a massive offloader, but you've got others in your team that can offload the ball a little bit more. So that's something I think is be cautious. The numbers are saying the Kiwis will be dominant, but I can see little areas where Tonga can pick those numbers up. But first, you got to start with your defensive work. You can't have that amount of missed tackles and your errors. Those are the key things. That was what was killing them. They couldn't get out of their own end, and they just couldn't hold on to the ball. So those are some of the things I think that need to be really, really important. Next, I want to look at some key matchups. As for the halves, Foz, I thought, had a really good game against Tor for his age and his ability. He's not a natural 7, but he did kick for 20 for 558. So the volume of kicks he was getting through, he got through a lot. He got 1 try assist, not massive run meters. Neither of them really have massive run meters. But if I'm kicking meters wise, I'd probably be looking for Izzy Katoa to get up around that 20 kicks range, get up around 450 to 500. Tackle efficiency from both of them, they can be targeted. I think Foran can jam on a strong lead line from a back rower, so you can go out the back there to Kohler and others to get some points there. So that's another area to look at. And like I said, 7 missed tackles, 6 mixed tackles. Both of them poor. But Izzy Katoa is probably the one I'm thinking, mate, you really need to sharpen up here and tidy everything up. 42 for 62, 42 for 57 in terms of their passes and receiving the ball. Now, their pass-to-run ratio, what that means is that every 4 passes, Kieran Ford makes a run. Every 3 passes he's making a run. So that number, I think, can fluctuate. Maybe Izzy takes on the line a bit more. Maybe that number goes up because he's passing a lot more. But at the same time, maybe that number goes down because he's starting to run the football a bit more. Those are just some things to consider. Let's look at something else. This is really important, the fullback battle. And this is where I challenge Lehigh Hopewadi to really lift his game. And Chance, he's pretty consistent, 26 for 183. But Lehigh numbers a little bit low. Kick return numbers there. You can see how important Chance is getting those runs off the back. That's when you know you're winning at the field position because you can run into the ball. Whereas Lehigh was getting pinned down and there wasn't much there. But its post-contact numbers are pretty good. Tackle breaks still has that ability. He's diffusing a lot more kicks. Chance has issues with diffusing kicks. We saw that with a 40-20. We saw that with a drop ball. So that's something where if I'm Izzy Katoa, you can definitely attack Chance. Hopewadi, Lehigh is looking a little bit safer there. But looking at the pass-to-run ratio there, Chance is running a little bit more, passing a little bit more, so he's distributing a bit more. Lehigh hasn't been involved in the attack, as you can see. He's running a lot more there. And those numbers will be skewed, obviously, because of how they play. Most fullbacks are runners. But would like to see Lehigh involved in the attack a little bit more. Just a little bit more structure. But it's one of those positions that you're going to need all that yardage, and your back three are going to help you. And I think the Kiwis will have enough. But if Chance really dominates that, you can just sort of almost see that field position wise, the Kiwis are just going to continually repel and get in that grind, because Stacey loves that style, especially from Webby and the Warriors, that your fullback takes those yardage carries to keep the forward pack fresh, so that when you kick it, that forward pack can just pin down and those types of things. So we probably need a bit more from Lehigh Hopewadi to really, really compete in that space. But there's some other really key contributors that are so important too. I thought Moses Leota, 12 for 85, tackle breaks, 30 tackles, 85% tackle efficiency, was really, really important. Him and Fish, again, if they can dominate AFB in that pack in the first 20, that will go a long way to getting a victory and to limiting the score to less than 18 points. Daniel Tupou, for me, he will probably get more. I need more meters from him. He has so much ability, even though he wasn't really getting targeted for kicks. 17 for 130, 3 tackle breaks, 3 kick defusals, so he's good in the air, but he did have 3 errors, so I expect a lot more kicks to go down his channel. Maybe those numbers go up a little bit more for him. Timoko, 22 for 204. I didn't even recognize this, but he's an absolute running beast, isn't he? So 80 PCMs, post contacts, 2 tackle breaks, 2 errors though. But I expect him to have maintained those numbers, because we will need that yardage. Very, very dominant performance from AFB. A little bit quiet on his end. He was having to tackle a lot more. They didn't have much position, so I imagine those numbers will come up. 13 for 133. 61 PCM, still expect more from him in that space. 2 tackle breaks, 1 offload. He might have to throw the offload a little bit more. 27 for 2, though. That's pretty tidy work in terms of tackles and missed tackles there. So I expect him to just pick his numbers up again. He probably needs another running mate to help him out a bit more. And I'm not sure if Felice Kafusi is that right guy for that. Then you got Casey McLean, 2 tries, 13 for 133 at the fullback position is pretty good. 3 line breaks, 7 tackle breaks. This is an area, though, that you can get him. 5 tackles and 5 missed tackles. Definitely an area that I'll be targeting if I'm Tonga, to go down that right channel with a Seb Chris on his outside. Maybe the comms aren't clear. They don't trust each other. One jams, one doesn't. Then you're going to get some space out there. But you expect Casey to find the line, or at least set up Chris for a try, I'm imagining, in this game. Sonny Luke, 7 for 73, 2 line breaks, and 4 for 44 from the dummy half run meters. His 7.14 pass rate ratio means that he is, for every 7 passes he's running, you probably see more out of him. For 30, what was his name? Saliva Havili was passing. His number was 35, so he was barely running out of dummy half. For every 35 passes, he made 1. So every 7 passes, Sonny Luke's getting out of dummy half. He will have to have a massive impact in order to get some dominance for them in that dummy half position and speed out of the ruck. He had 2 line breaks. He did a little chip and chase. He's got that threat. I thought some of his organising passes were really, really poor. But the numbers show that he can produce, and they will need that impact from him. Phoenix, 4 for 23, 3 for 23 from dummy half. A 14.5 PRR, so you can see he's a bit more of a passer, but defensively, 28-0 for tackles and missed. So he's very, very tidy if you're looking at his numbers. Defensive, but there's nothing out of dummy half. So like I was saying, there's an area where you can just defend this up and down if I'm Tonga. I wouldn't be expecting much from Phoenix Crossland. Tim Maida is going to have to do something a little bit different, but they're both very similar. They'll just be passing one out from the ruck, passing one out from. So if I'm Tonga, my market defense won't be fully tested, I imagine, but Phoenix will be defensively sound. So a good little battle there, but I do favour Sonny Luke from an attacking sense, but Phoenix will hold up defensively. Eli Katoa, I need more from this man here. He's a great player. He will have to lift as well. I'd like to see him and Izzy work a little bit better on the edge, get into a flow. But look, 3 tackle breaks, 2 offloads. He will pass the ball around a bit more. 26 for 3 tackles and missed. So I'm expecting a little bit more from him. Now, Fahu White, I mentioned how important this guy is in the preview for the Kiwi squad. He needs to maintain his numbers there: 13 for 133, 65 PCMs, 4 tackle breaks, 36 and 4 tackles and missed. He will need to maintain those numbers to keep that energy going for the Kiwis throughout the middle of that game, because he'll be playing those long minutes from that 25-minute mark through to about the 60-minute mark, 65-minute mark. So he needs a massive game alongside Aaron Clark. Lecker, I mentioned Lecker looked a little bit tired, but then again, when you look at his numbers, 12 for 139, 33 post contact, 1 line break, 4 tackle breaks. He is very effective. Now, can Tonga use him a little bit more? He can put him on a lead line on Kieran Foran, and Kieran Foran may bite because of the threat of Lecker. So there's an issue there that you could probably use him more in attacking sense. He has X factor in him. He's a guy that can pick up a crowd. I know this from as a Warriors fan. He can pick up a team and just carry them. You put Lecker there back home in Eden Park, and he gets a try, that crowd will lift. I just know that as a Warriors fan. He has X factor that I really worry about. That could be an impact for that Tonga team. But those are your key players, guys. Now, with all that said and all that we're predicted and it's all on paper, this is where I'm leaning towards at the moment. I'm thinking it is going to be a Kiwis win 26-18. I think Tonga will get some more points in them, but I'm not sure they can repel defensively right now where they're at. This Kiwi team's from scoring some more points. I had the Kiwis, they got 24 points. I think they'll maybe get an extra try or an extra penalty. I think Tonga could actually hit that 24 margin. I'm playing 18 just because of what I've seen. So I do think it's a Kiwis win, but it also could be a Tonga win if everything works out for them. They will have to throw some cut-out passes. They'll have to land everything that falls their way. Maybe they get some dominant position. Maybe the Kiwis fall off. That is the area of concern for me, is that Stacey needs to build some more performances that I can trust him in as a coach. Wolf can motivate these boys and say, hey, we've beaten these guys before. Now, they may not win by 18 points, but they could say, let's beat them again 2 years in a row, and we go into World Cup knowing we could beat them in a World Cup semi-final. And you build, even though you don't beat them to make the final, mentally, the Kiwis are like, man, we can't beat Tonga. They're actually that good. So there's benefits, not just beyond the Pacific Champs. There's benefits for future years that say, man, Tonga are a really hard team to beat. They've beaten us twice. That's a bit embarrassing. And if I'm Stacey, that is an embarrassment, because I'm expecting more from him as a Kiwis coach with high standards, that we need to go out there and perform and win a Pac Champs, which I think we should, but also when you prepare for a World Cup. So there's a lot on the line here. There's a lot at stake. And I think the crowd is expecting for 40,000 at this stage, which is massive. No doubt it'll be a Red Sea, and they're gonna perform and lift. So it's going to be really good to see the grit and determination of both teams. Who wants it more, and by how much? Will Tonga just come out and throw the ball around, play risky passes, offloads everywhere? That's a little bit of risk. You want to kind of work your way into a game to build a structure that you can trust, and then you open up the game later on. Or do the Kiwis just blow it, they choke it, and they just come out thinking they're going to dominate, which the Kiwis have. The Kiwis have this. They're not like the Kangaroos, where the Kangaroos have standards, and once in a blue moon, they get beaten by 30. They usually maintain those standards no matter who plays. Sometimes the Kiwis, you can't trust them. Personally, I've seen that too many times, 2017, 2015, other years. So let's wait and see. But for me personally, and I'm a Kiwis fan, but I'm just basing it off numbers of what I'm thinking as well. I think the Kiwis, what they've shown and what Tonga have shown, that the Kiwis will go on to win this game. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Be interested to see your thoughts. And yeah, hit me up, and I'll try and respond as best I can. But really interested to see what you guys are thinking. And heaps of really cool comments coming in lately that I responded to. Sometimes I can't respond, but I give it a like. But anyway, I do appreciate everyone sharing in the comments. Let me know what you guys think, and enjoy the game on the weekend. We'll come back with a post-match reaction, and we'll look towards the Pac Champs finals the following. Stay safe, guys. Up the Kiwis, and we'll leave it there. Peace.